Welcome back. Now, I did say we're going to switch focus to education, and we're discussing education because this is something very, very serious. The Nigerian education sector is one that has frequently come under criticism, and it has again been hit by yet another controversy that can best be described as an indictment on the country's tertiary education. As a matter of fact, the top of the country's tertiary education. Now, if you're wondering why most Nigerian professors are unable to get global research grants, the reason may not be far-fetched. The Executive Secretary of Tertiary Education Trust Fund, that's TET Fund, Professor Suleiman Bagoro, has revealed that many of the professors in Nigerian universities have low capacity to write quality research proposals. In his words, Bagoro said some of the proposals coming to TET Fund, quote, makes one to wonder if some of these professors in question are actually the principal investigators of the proposals, end of quote. Now, to check the situation, the agency has made available 10 million naira for vice chancellors and provosts in all beneficiary institutions to create a week-long program for capacity building and training for research proposal writing. That's for professors now. This, of course, is a very serious allegation if you ask me, and that's because these are the teachers with supposed years of experience who have the responsibility of training our young people in the university. Now, if they are failing in their primary duties, what then can we expect of their students? Joining me now to discuss this further is Professor Ishe Sage, who is a law professor and also a senior advocate of Nigeria. Prof, let me start by asking you how really damaging that comment is from the Executive Secretary of TET Fund.
Yes, well, it's damaging indeed, but it's not far from the truth. Because our culture of research is shallow and at times not related to societal problems. But if you look at this matter very carefully, the professors are not exclusively to be blamed. The university system promotes quantity rather than quality in terms of research papers required for promotion. What they do is they put a minimum number. Oh, to be a professor, you will need at least 25 papers in some specific types of journals and one book. Or if you don't have a book, maybe some 30-something papers, that type of thing. And the same applies lower down to senior lecturers, lecturer 1, lecturer 2. So the result of that is this phrase, this spirit that is called publish or perish. And when you have to publish or perish, it means you have to churn out as many papers as possible. And the result of that is that the papers have low quality. Yeah, regardless of quality, because you need numbers. The university is insisting on numbers. So they are not looking at quality. If they had a system in which they said, which was quality-based, and they said, you don't need 30 papers. If you have 5, and those 5 not merely contribute to knowledge, but actually contribute towards solving major societal problems, that's more than enough for you to be a professor. In fact, you don't need more than 1 paper for that if you have a major breakthrough. But so this insistence on numbers make the lecturers turn them into factories for churning out worthless articles. Some, in fact, out of desperation, become their own publishers. In my last posting as an academic, the staff under me were publishing their own books. And I said, you can't do that. You need the books to go under some form of, not just supervision, refereeing to see whether they have the sufficient quality. But Nobody listened to me. Everybody was publishing his books. So some people had 3 or 4 books, self-published, or some others set up journals themselves and started publishing in their own journals because of the rush for numbers. And then having done that, they begin what is called padding. I laugh when they say the National Assembly is padding. They need to go and learn from the universities. That's where real padding takes place, where you have maybe 2 or 3 good articles, then between them, you have maybe 20, 25 worthless articles which are padded into it. And when you look at the whole thing, it looks so long. But if you take the trouble of going through the papers, you'll find that maybe most of them are worthless. Maybe 2 or 3 are useful. That's the problem.
Prof, you know why this is even more worrying is the fact that, look, from what the TED Fund Executive Secretary said, he made it quite clear that the number of professors we have in Nigeria is growing, that at the moment we have around 8,000, but that the quality of these professors is becoming a very big challenge. As a matter of fact, he made it quite clear that, look, TED Fund, for instance, has a grant for research, and some of the proposals that TED Fund itself is getting, apart from, apart from these global grants now, but even the grants for TED Fund, some of the proposals that TED Fund is getting from our professors, that they're just nothing to write home about.
Yes, I don't think it is because the lecturers themselves are not brilliant or do not deserve the degrees they have. They are brilliant people. They are hardworking. But it's the orientation that is the problem. If, for example, a lecturer is given a research grant which is directed towards a specific problem, you will see that he will do an excellent job. For example, we have professors who are working in IITA, the Agric Research Institute in Ibadan. And they are doing very well in using their research to create new species of agric products which are very fruitful and produce in high numbers. And those are very, very productive type of research. And it's the same lecturers. But if you leave them in an arid atmosphere, where there are no research grants, in fact, you're on your own. So in most of them, there are no research grants. So they are cooped up in their office, get a few books here, read through, and then try and produce something artificially from your own mental resources. I'll give you an example. I was a member of council of Delta State University, Abraka, from 2000 to 2007. When I got there as a member of council, there was no research grant. So people were just producing worthless papers until the government of Ibori, who was then governor, produced quite a very large sum as research grants. And from then on, the quality of research improved. So what I'm trying to say is that all of it is not the fault of the lecturers. There are institutional problems where you do not encourage them, where you do not give them research grants, where you do not help to attach them to major international laboratories and other research institutions to help build up their capacity and direct them, orient them towards specific problem-solving research. You are bound to have this barren
Can't we also say, Prof, that you look at this growing number of professors, 8,000, and of course you did say something that it appears we're looking at quantity and not quality. Don't you think in some cases here that we're beginning to have a situation where universities themselves are beginning to lower the standards and requirements for becoming a professor?
Yes, it's quite possible because you notice there's an explosion of universities in Nigeria. Private universities are springing up per second. Profit for profit. Then even under Jonathan, inexplicably, 13 new universities were created. When we could not fund the existing one. So it's a self-created problem. When you do this, you stretch out the existing qualified personnel, academic personnel. It becomes very thin on the ground. There's a desperation, there's a competition among the universities to recruit these people. And if you are a lecturer one or senior lecturer and a new university doesn't have anybody, you can dictate to them that you want to be interviewed for the professorship. And it will be much easier to get it that way than if, without rigor, than if there was not such an explosion of universities all over the place. So part of it is created by the Nigerian condition.
And how if our professors are not of the best quality, then one wonders what would happen to the students.
Absolutely. There's no doubt that for some years now, maybe for more than a decade, there's been a drop in the quality of students. In my last years of examining as a lecturer at UniBen, my last 2 or 3 years, there were many scripts I could not read. I would just write incomprehensible on the script and just, without marking it, because I could not read the language. There was no, I don't know whether the person was writing in his native language or they were writing in English. So I just scribble across it, incomprehensible, and just put it aside, unmarked. It was that bad. And I don't know what it is now. So there's no question that the fact that the lecturers are few, students are numerous, universities are numerous, all these are affecting quality.
TED Fund says it is providing 10 million to schools now to carry out training for our professors, train them in proposal writing and all of that. Beyond this, what else do you think we need to do to check this trend, to reverse it? Because it's quite embarrassing. One of the things that the TED Fund Executive Secretary also said was that he actually attended an international forum somewhere abroad, and that Nigerian professors were shying away from mounting the podium because they just knew they would not be able to defend their professorship, and that, they were just shying away when invited to the podium to speak.
That is true. It is because they lack the facilities for good research. If, for example, you attach such Nigerian professors to institutions and institutes and research labs abroad, they produce high-quality work. Don't forget that a lot of the professors abroad who are achieving excellence are Nigerians who went abroad because they have facilities. So it's not an irredeemable problem. It's a question of improving the facilities that they have, attaching them to research granting bodies, research fund granting bodies, and also orienting our research towards problem solving, rather than purely theoretical work, which is of no use, at the end of it. Research for the sake of research, science for the sake of science. That's not good enough for a country that is in a hurry, that wants to develop.
Absolutely necessary, as you said, for these universities to provide research grant, because it just would not make if a university is established, you do not have research grants. So how then would you expect these professors or
you can't. You can't. In fact, as a teacher, the last university in which I got a research grant was IFE. The old universities still have those traditions. And that enabled me to recruit students as research assistants. It enabled me to travel to various countries to collect materials, and that ended up in being able to write 2 books. But unfortunately, the newer institutions don't have that tradition. They don't have that culture.
It's really quite unfortunate. And something has to be done, because this is quite embarrassing and very indicting.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Isesage, for talking to us on Deji 360.
You are most welcome.
All right, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll conclude on this very note. Stay with us. On Deji 360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country?
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that band.
Deji 360, providing clarity to issues. All right, let's continue this discussion further. I'm now being joined on the line from Anambra State by Professor Chinyere Stella Okonna, who is a professor of mass communication, and of course, she's of the Department of Mass Communication, Nnamdi Azikiwe University. Prof, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Let me start by asking you, what exactly would be your reaction to those comments by the Executive Secretary of TETFON? Quite indicting, you would say.
I would say it's not completely fair to all professors in Nigeria.
Of course, he said some anyway, not all.
Yeah, he said 80%. That's too
80%,
high.
very high.
I know standards are crumbling. Standards are quite low in comparison with past years. But then I don't think it's as hopeless as he has painted the situation. There are professors that are still smart. Maybe they are not applying for those grants.
Well, because it's quite worrying. He said some of the proposals that TETFON itself has received, that some of those proposals are really very bad and not expected of professors. I mean, for instance, he said you begin to wonder if those professors are actually the initiators or investigators of those proposals.
I agree to some extent. Some professors who are emerging now have not passed through the rigorous selection process, promotion process. I know there are professors in some universities who are not really deserving of that high status. But then, like I keep saying, there are still some very good, sound, erudite professors.
Obviously.
Maybe those ones are not applying for grants. Maybe they are so self-sufficient, they are not researching, they are not applying. There are some very poor quality professors. Maybe it is only they who are applying. So I will not say up to 80% of professors in Nigeria cannot write national grants. But it's good. They've made money available. It says 10 million naira per institution for them to put them through their paces to learn how to write research grants. It's one thing to have the knowledge. It's another thing to know the procedure of writing. Maybe in quality they haven't followed the right procedure. But I still disagree that up to 80% professors are of poor quality. I still insist that maybe those who are good are not applying. Maybe those who are of poor quality are the ones who are desperate for those grants and are applying.
Well, the fact is that, look, we shouldn't even have poor quality professors in the first place.
We do.
Yeah, but we do. That's the obvious reality. Now,
the academia is not immune to the corruption and to the poor quality way Nigeria is being run today. So it affects everything. Merit has been thrown to the background. It applies to everywhere, military, education, universities, everywhere. You can see lack of merit everywhere.
And clearly, the Executive Secretary says the number of professors we have now is actually growing at about 8,000, but then quality-wise, does it mean universities? Some of these universities are beginning to lower their standards, and the requirements.
I agree completely. Many universities, many professors are emerging without rigorous appraisal and selection processes. It's happening everywhere. And some of them, the quality is extremely low and poor. I agree. But like I said earlier, maybe those who are knowledgeable should be encouraged more or should revive their interest in applying for
Sorry, Prof, sorry to interject, but could there also be a connection? Could there be a connection? I mean, I'm talking, is there a possibility there's a connection between this and the explosion of private universities we have all around? Because you look at the number of private universities, springing up on a daily basis. The question you ask is, where do you get the personnel to staff these universities?
You are correct. When there are too many universities and very few people teaching there who are properly qualified, you know what they're doing nowadays? Some of these universities, somebody is teaching maybe in a sound university, maybe a federal university, and he or she applies to these new age universities. What they do, he goes from maybe senior lecturer or even lecturer 1 to reader or to professor. You are a senior lecturer maybe at Unizik, and they invite you to a new place. They are desperate for staff. And you come in there and you jump into professorship with poor assessment because they need high-profile staff to make sure that the university becomes visible. That also is lowering standards. So that people who are not qualified yet to become professors get invited to a new place that is desperate for staff, and they get promoted above what their merit should be. It's part of the problem. Even though some old universities are also not assessing their professors
properly
as they should.
As they should. Now, what do you think needs to be done? What do you think we should be doing to address this situation? Because it's a big problem. If you have problems with your professors, then what do you say about the quality of the students?
I think NUC needs to harmonize standards. There are some universities that have very rigorous selection processes and assessment processes. They should make the assessment process uniform across all universities. You don't allow University of Nigeria or University of Lagos or let's say University of Uyo to have high standards, while others can apply whatever standards they like and promote those who are not deserving of promotion. So there can be a minimum standard all across board in all universities. So that if you're being promoted to professorship in Unilag, the same standards will apply to being promoted professor in UNICEF, in UNIZEC, and in University of Uyo, everywhere. I think standards need to harmonize. Right now, autonomy is too lax, so to say. Universities have their own selection procedures, they have their own assessment criteria, and sometimes they are lower in one university than another one. That's what I mean.
Obviously, I would not doubt that.
When I accept for promotion, for professorship, some universities give me criteria that are quite high, quite sound, and they say you must publish, and they give you a list of high-profile journals in your area. Others don't even bother. They are publishing in this wishy-washy online journals that nobody's even reading. So I think NUC should look into harmonization of standards across board, so that what is happening in one university that is of good quality should also be adopted in all universities across board, at least in all federal universities.
I wouldn't doubt you, because I've seen situations, I'm personally have seen that, where a lecturer finds it difficult to get professorship in one university, and you see the lecturer leaves the university, goes to another university, and before you know it, that lecturer is a professor.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Professor Okana, for talking to us on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it on the program. If you want to watch it again, it's very simple. All you just need to do is go to our website, www.tv360nigeria.com. You'll see this program and lots more. You can also follow us on our various social media handles and, of course, contribute to this program and lots more. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next time. I am Deji. Bye-bye.